والرؤية حق لأهل الجنة بغير إحاطة ولا كيفية كما نطق به كتاب ربنا وجوه يومئذ ناظرة إلى ربها ناظرة وتفسيره على ما أراد الله تعالى وعلمه وكل ما جاء في ذلك من الحديث الصحيح عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فهو كما قال ومعناه على ما أراد لا ندخل في ذلك متأولين بآرائنا ولا متوهمين بأهوائنا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised something for the people of Jannah, which the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam informed us is going to be the highest pleasure and the highest honor of Jannah, which is that the people will be able to see Allah ta'ala. This is mentioned in the book of Allah ta'ala where He says that some faces on that day will be bright and they will be gazing upon their Lord. And the tafsir of these ayat is whatever Allah ta'ala knows them to mean and whatever He meant them to mean. And everything that is transmitted with regards to the seeing of Allah ta'ala in Jannah through the authentic hadith, the reality of those hadiths are whatever the Prophet ﷺ said them to be and meant them to be. And we do not enter into the details of those issues trying to interpret them based on our own opinions nor trying to make idle and unchained and spurious speculation with regards to those things based on our own whims and desires. So this is it's like in the series of refutations of Mu'tazili positions, this is another position that Tahawi will refute, which is what? Which is that Allah Ta'ala says that you're going to see Him in Jannah. The Mu'tazila are like, how is that possible? You're not Allah. I mean, how can you see Allah Ta'ala? And the issue is, this is Allah Ta'ala says you're going to see Him. So the Mu'tazila are like, no, that doesn't make any sense. The Sunni position is what? Allah Ta'ala said it, it's going to be true, we just don't know how. They say, no, it's not true, it must mean something else. There's a subtle difference between these two things. Now, the Sunni position again is to affirm that it's correct, but to say that we don't know how it's going to be correct. This methodology is actually also extracted from the Quran itself. Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Al Imran, He says, هُوَ الَّذِي نَزَّلَ عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ مِنْهُ آيَاتٌ مُحْكَمَاتٌ هُنَّ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ. He said, Allah is the one who sent the book down upon you. From it are certain ayat that are muhkamat, meaning what? That their meaning is clear. Their delineation, their distinction, what they're trying to say, it's very clear. Right? السارق والسارقة فاقطع أيديهما. That is not a metaphor for the beauty of spring. That means that if someone steals something, you cut their hand off. The details may not be there, like is there a minimum amount? What should we do in Canada where we don't run the country? Those details, it's fine, they're not there. But the idea is very clear to everybody what the verse is trying to convey. So these ayat are known that are very clear in their delineation, very direct in their delineation. They're called the Muhkamat. Allah Ta'ala says, He says, Hunna Ummul Kitab. They form the bulk of the revelation. Meaning what? Focus on them. Learn them. Understand them. Allah Ta'ala says, further in the same ayah, He says, وَأُخَرُ مُتَشَابِهَاتٍ. And there are other ayat which are mutashabihat. What does tashabuh mean? It means that they seem like they're saying one thing, but they're actually saying another. They're allegorical. It's not exactly clear what's being said here. وَأُخَرُ مُتَشَابِهَاتٍ. The existence of the mutashabihat are actually affirmed by the Quran itself. So what does it mean? Alif Lam Mim, what does it mean? What does it mean when Allah Ta'ala says, عَلَى الْعَرْشِ اسْتَوَى? What does it mean, يَدُ اللَّهِ فَوْقَ أَيْدِيهِمْ, that Allah's hand was above their hands? Is this proof that Allah actually has a physical hand and it's like your hand? No. This is indicating something. The meaning of the word that's used is not literally what it's indicating. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's so many realities with regards to the deen that human language cannot describe those things completely or properly. So words are used to describe those things that no words are there that can describe them. Those words have a meaning, but their meaning is not the conventional meaning of those words. They're used in a way that's not the conventional usage of those words. So Allah Ta'ala Himself said they are mutashabihat. They seem like they're talking about one thing, but they're actually talking about something else. What is the guideline with regards to the mutashabihat? Allah Ta'ala says, فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ زَيْغٌ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ مَا تَشَابَهَ مِنْهُ ابْتِغَاءَ الْفِتْنَةِ وَابْتِغَاءَ تَأْوِيلِهِ وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. He says, as for those people who have sickness inside of their heart, twistedness and crookedness inside of their heart, they will not spend their time trying to understand the Mohkumat. Those are the things that are very clear. Those things don't capture their imagination. They're boring for them. Rather, they'll spend all their time trying to understand that part of the Quran which Allah Ta'ala says you're not going to be able to understand. فَيَتَّبِعُونَ مَا تَشَابَهَ مِنْهُ ابْتِغَاءَ الْفِتْنَةِ, courting Allah's punishment, وَابْتِغَاءَ تَأْوِيلِهِ, by courting Allah's punishment, by seeking out some sort of interpretation for these ayat. And Allah Ta'ala says very clearly, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. Nobody knows the interpretation, the correct interpretation of these verses except for Allah. Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala gives a slightly more generous reading of this ayah. He says, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ. That nobody knows the meaning of these ayat except for Allah and those people who are firmly founded in knowledge. This expression, الرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ, like save it on the side. Tahawi will mention it later on and give a definition for it later. وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ يَقُولُونَ آمَنَّا بِهِ كُلٌّ مِّنْ عِنْدِ رَبِّنَا. Right? The interpretive methodology for these ayat, Allah Ta'ala Himself, He mentions. He says, those people are firmly grounded in knowledge. They say, we believe in it, all of it comes from our Lord. Meaning what? It's okay, there's certain parts of the Quran that actually the way of understanding them is to say, I cannot understand these. Allah knows best what they mean. But I believe it's true, whatever the meaning is, Allah knows what it is, and whatever the meaning is in the knowledge of Allah Ta'ala, that's what I affirm without knowing it, without knowing in detail what it is. وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ يَقُولُونَ آمَنَّا بِهِ كُلٌّ مِّنْ عِنْدِ رَبِّنَا وَمَا يَذَّكَّرُ إِلَّا أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. Right? That the people who are firmly founded in knowledge, they say, we believe in it, all of it comes from our Lord, and no one will take this remembrance except for the people of wisdom. So, coming back to this issue with regards to how can this be the speech of Allah when Allah Ta'ala doesn't talk and He's not confined in time and space? How can you see Allah Ta'ala if He's not confined in time and space? What does it even mean to see Allah Ta'ala? We say, look, Allah said it's going to happen. That's His job to make it happen. We believe in what He says. We believe in what His promise is. We don't need to understand how. So many things. You know that they work, you don't understand how. Who here knows how your phone works? Always someone's raised their hand and say, I know how it works. Okay, who's that guy or sister? Who's that person? Tell me, who here knows how your phone works? Like in general you know how it works, but like you don't actually in detail know how it works. Always, I know how it works. I would tell me what's the voltage in your battery. That's not even like a hard question, you know what I mean? That's like you literally open your phone up and look and see, right? Even simple things like that, people don't know about how it works. But you know that it does work, so you use it. You don't have a problem with it, right? So Allah created the heavens and the earth, things that seem impossible for you and me, you know, for Allah Ta'ala is not really a big deal. So you just accept that from Him. That's the point of the mutashabihat. Right? Yadullahi fawqa aydihim. What does that mean? Does Allah have a hand? Look, the point of the ayah is not to give like an anatomy lesson. The point of the ayah is something else. Those people whose minds are like stuck on like the anatomical or like literal meanings of words, those people are hard to talk to anyway. We mentioned this in the khutbah as well, right? If you say you say to them, give me a hand, and they take a meat cleaver and go like whack, and then they hand you their bloody hand right there. You're like, you're a freak. What's wrong with you? Get away from me. Why is it that that's freakish when we talk to one another, but when you read the Quran, that's a perfectly normal and acceptable way of interpreting the Quran? That's not how the Quran works. Allah Ta'ala revealed the Quran through a human, in language that's intelligible to human beings. Why? Because that's how people who are not insane, that's how they talk to one another. Right? What is it? The Zahiris, they say, no, there's no majaz in the Quran. وَالْمَجَازُ أَخُ الْكَذِبِ وَالْكَذِبُ مُحَالٌ عَلَى اللَّهِ. No, Allah Ta'ala uses metaphors in the Quran. Not everything in the Quran is literally true. There are certain ayat, if you interpret them as literally true, it's kufr. Right? Allah Ta'ala, you and the ones that you worship other than Allah are the gravel of Jahannam, hasabu Jahannam antum wa laha waridun. People worship Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. If someone says that, a'udhu billah, Sayyidina Isa is the hasabu Jahannam, that person himself will become the hasabu Jahannam. That's kufr. Why? Because Allah Ta'ala doesn't have to mention that exception. If you have a quarter worth of common sense, you should be able to figure that part out. Shouldn't need to be explained to you, right? What does it mean? Yadullahi fawqa aydihim, right? What's the purpose of the ayah? Allah is trying to express something that, if Allah's hand is with the people, does that mean that people are good or bad? It means it's good, they're good, Allah's pleased with them, right? That may not be exactly what the word yad means, but the general idea is being conveyed by the verse, that all the Arabs understood what it meant, right? So there are some people, they fixate on this one word and they go off into left field. They ignore what the actual point of the ayah is and try to figure. Allah says, look, those nitpicky details that are highly detailed, some of them are shrouded in the mysteries of timelessness and spacelessness, etc. That's not the point of these ayat. The point of these ayat is to convey some other meaning to you. And so the people who are firmly founded in knowledge will say with regards to, for example, right, al-istiwa, al-arsh istawa, al-arsh istawa, that Allah Ta'ala, ar-Rahmanu al-arsh istawa, that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, the most merciful, ar-Rahmanu, He was firmly positioned over the throne. What does that mean? Does that mean Allah Ta'ala sits in a chair? The meaning is what? وَرَاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ يَقُولُونَ آمَنَّا بِهِ كُلٌّ مِّنْ عِنْدِ رَبِّنَا. Allah Ta'ala knows best. Well, we believe in it, whatever it means, whatever it means is correct. Why is it that we don't say, no, Allah, it means Allah sits on a chair? Why? Because لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. There's no one like unto Him. هُوَ الَّذِي فِي السَّمَاءِ إِلَهٌ وَفِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَهٌ. He's the one who's Allah, who is God in the heavens and He's God in the earth. What does it mean that in the last third of the night He comes to Sama' dunya and listens to the prayers of people? What does it mean that وَهُوَ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ, that He's closer to خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ وَيَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ وَهُوَ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ, that He created insan, and He knows the intimate conversation, the whispering of the intimate conversation between a person and his own soul. And He's closer to him than his carotid artery. What do these things mean? Does this mean Allah Ta'ala is stuck inside of your throat? وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ? No. A normal person, when they hear these things, they're like, yeah, Allah is intimately aware of what's going on with me. Does it mean that this is the definitive answer? Where is Allah? No. Those things that seem right, and this is a point that was used in the refutation of the Mu'tazila before. That those qualities that in the Quran, every statement in the Quran that may seem on the surface, if you interpret it literally, it may seem like it's attributing some sort of attribute of createdness to Allah, that Allah is in a specific place, or Allah has limbs like the limbs of a human being, or Allah has a face like the face of a human being, or something like that. All of those places, the interpretive methodology of the Ahlus Sunnah, which is taken directly from the Quran, is what? We affirm that whatever it means is true, and we negate that what it means is anything that resembles the creation. And we say whatever it means is true, and Allah knows best what it means. So it's famous that somebody came to Imam Malik rahimahullah tabarak wa ta'ala, whether it's true or not, someone brought up a discussion about this in the past of whether the attribution is correct or not. And then I researched it, and some people said, no, the attribution actually is correct. Allah knows best. I don't have the tahqiq on this issue, but at any rate, it's widely attributed to Malik rahimahullah ta'ala, and even if the attribution is incorrect, the meaning is correct. That someone asked him, what does it mean Allah is firmly seated, or firmly positioned over the throne? What does it mean? And he said, al-istiwa'u ma'lum wal-kayfiyya majhul, or wal-kayf majhul, wal-kayfiyya majhul, wal-imanu bihi wajib, was-su'alu anhu bid'ah. That the fact that Allah is firmly positioned over the throne, al-arsh istiwa, the istiwa, it's known. Why? Because Allah said it in His book. It's well known that Allah said it in His book. And what the modality is, what the particular details of what that means is unknown. And to believe in it, whatever it means. We just said the particulars are unknown, but whatever it means, to believe in it is wajib. It's an obligation of iman. وَالسُّؤَالُ عَنْهُ بِدْعَةٌ. And to nitpick and ask detailed questions about it is a reprehensible innovation. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they didn't ask these questions. Does this really mean Allah sits in a chair in the sky? They didn't ask these questions. They just understood that what Allah is not like His creation, and that these ayat are mentioned in the Quran, the general gist of which we understand, the details of which are not meant by, the literal details of which are not meant by this revelation. So, and it's interesting too, because what will happen is, in the history of Islam, you'll have the Mu'tazila, and then you'll have a counter-reaction toward the Mu'tazila. The Mu'tazila tried to use philosophical explanations to explain away certain things that are mentioned in the Quran, and their counter-reaction is literalism. So those people were the antagonists of the Mu'tazila. They say, no, it says that for example, it says that the Quran is the Kalam of Allah, which means that the words written in the Mus'haf are part of Allah's sifa, and they're eternal and uncreated. And the sounds that a person makes inside their throat are also eternal and uncreated. That's like an overreaction. That's itself, it's irrational. We say that rationality is not what validates a revelation, but we also don't take recourse to irrationality like the Yahud and Nasara do. And so what happens is that, al al-arsh istawa, the Mu'tazila are like, oh, here istiwa is a metaphor for, God's sovereignty. And istiwa is not actually happening. We say, no, it's happening, and what it means is whatever Allah means it to mean. The Mu'tazila say, no, it's not actually happening. And then the counter-reaction of the literalists is what? No, Allah is sitting in a chair in the sky. A'udhu billah. You see how the way of the Ahlus Sunnah is a balanced way in the middle. Allah said it, He meant what He meant, He knows what He meant, we affirm it, but we don't know the details, nor do we get into the details, nor are the details even relevant to you and I. You're not going to be asked, Allah Ta'ala is not going to be like, what does al-istiwa mean? If you answer correctly, you go to Jannah. If you don't, you're going to go to Jahannam. No. He's going to ask you why you were a jerk to your mother. You understand what I'm saying? Those are the things that you're going to be liable for on the Day of Judgment. These things, they're a sign of sickness in the heart, that a person obsesses with these things and doesn't spend their life, dedicate their life to those parts of the deen that Allah commanded you to actually dedicate your life to. So this is an issue. Now what happens is, this question always comes up, which is, Shaykh, can you tell us about what the difference is between Ash'a'ira and Maturidiyya and Athariyya, etc., all the different schools. There are madhabs in Kalam as well. Nobody studies Kalam, so because of that we don't know what those things are, but there are madhabs in all sorts of things. There are madhabs in Arabic grammar. Did you know that? What madhab you follow in grammar, Musa? Are you Kufi or Basri? Are you Athari? Like Malik, وَلَسْتُ بِنَحْوِيًّا يَلُوكُ لِسَانُهُ وَإِنِّي سُلُوقِيًّا أَقُولُ فَأُعْرِبُ سَلِيقِيًّا فَأَقُولُ فَأُعْرِبُ. He says, I'm not a grammarian who trips over his tongue. Rather, I'm a man of style, and what I say is Arabic. Yeah. Right? So that's the third madhab in grammar. Nobody cares, because those things, you're not going to get the glory. You're not going to win a debate. Nobody wants to listen to that debate, so there's no glory in them, right? So nobody cares. There's madhabs in all sorts of things. So there are the three famous madhabs of the Ahlus Sunnah in terms of Aqidah, and they have to do with how you solve these very issues we're talking about. You have a problem. What's the problem? The problem is that the mutashabihat, people make wrong interpretations of them. And it confuses and causes deviation and misunderstanding in sickness in the hearts of the generality of the Muslims. So how do you deal with them? So the Aqidah of Ahlus Sunnah Wal Jamah is the same. All of them believe in the same Aqidah. The reaction to how do we refute heresy, there are three different reactions. The first camp, they are known as the Athari or the Salafi group. It has nothing to do with the modern new Salafi movement. Rather, that's an identifier that's fairly modern, whereas this is a terminology that's over 1,000 years old. So the Athari madhab, and then the two madhabs of Kalam, which is the Ash'ari and Maturidi. So all of the Ahlus Sunnah, they agree that the mutashabihat mean what they mean, and Allah knows best what they mean. That it is haram to interpret them based on their literal meaning, and it's also impermissible to speculate about them. We don't speculate about Aqidah. Aqidah is not, we don't do ijtihad with regards to Aqidah. We do ijtihad with regards to fiqh, because there are certain situations that we have which are unprecedented, because fiqh is dealing with particulars, with concrete situations, with real life situations. Whereas Aqidah is usuli, it deals with principles and abstract matters. Abstract matters. That same young man, he got upset at me. So how can you say that the wahy is abstract? I go, you know what the word abstract means? He's like, yeah, I took an art class. The meaning of abstract and the concept of art is very different than the dictionary meaning of abstract. Abstract means what? Like a shari'i hukum is abstract. For example, what is it? In abstract, right, eating pork is haram. Does anyone disagree with me here that eating pork is haram? Good. Right? Eating pork is haram. What if you're starving to death and there's nothing else to eat? Okay. In that particular situation, now it's halal. What if someone puts a gun to Molvi Hamza's head and say, if you don't eat pork, I'm going to shoot Hamza? Then please, it's fard wajib, eat the pork. Right? The hukum changes based on particulars, but that doesn't change in abstract, the abstract hukum is what? Is that it's haram. Right? And this is the mindset people are not trained in usul nowadays. Everyone, like, if you get only a STEM education, which is important, it's good. I've done that too, and I recommend that as well. But if that's all you learn, then the line of like linear and one-dimensional thinking people have, what is it? It's like, is pork haram? Yes. Well, what if you're starving? Okay, no, it's not haram. See, it's not really haram. No, it's still pretty haram. You don't know anything about the rule based on its exceptions, right? So as you go from the abstract toward the concrete, then things become more complicated. Whereas in the realm of the abstract, things are very simple. So aqaid are abstract, they're usuli, they're based on principles. There's no ijtihad in the basic aqaid of Islam. So all three of them, they agree on what the aqidah is. The problem comes forth is that now you have two groups come up. Mu'tazila are like, yeah, istiwa doesn't happen, and the mujassima and literalists are like, no, Allah is sitting on a chair in the sky. Now you have two ideas that are floating around in the minds of the people. The Sahaba, the Tabi'een, the Aslaf, they used to not talk about these issues. These questions don't even come up in a normal unsick mind. But now it's the problem. Someone has said something, once you get something, there's no, like, what if I show you a picture, right? This is a picture of the Prophet ﷺ, a'udhu billah, right? And it's not really. Obviously it's not. How could you have a picture? I show you the picture and you look at it. Now it's, how are you going to get it out of your head? Right? It sits there, it bothers you, right? So this is a funny story, teaching story that one brother taught. He says, imagine there's like a village back in the day, and the village has one well. They take the water from the well, and they drink from the well, and they make wudu from the well, and they wash their dishes, they make ghusl from the well. They do everything from that same well. And so they wake up, and the villagers wake up in the morning, and they find the water smells horrible, it's putrid. And as the sun rises a little bit, they notice that there's like a bloated corpse of a dog in the well, like a dog tripped and fell in. Now all the water is like messed up. So they go to their Maulana Sahib, Maulana Sahib read Quduri, right? So he's a smart guy. He says, what do we do? He says, I read Quduri, I got this, I got you, right? Take 100 buckets of water out of the well, and the rest of the water should be tahir. So they do that, they take 100 buckets of water and throw it out. And they're like, Maulana Sahib, the water still smells horrible. He's like, I don't know, take out another 100 buckets. And so they do it, and the water still smells bad. He's like, take out another 100. So you do this a couple of times, and then finally Maulana Sahib is like, look, did you take the dog out yet? They're like, no. Okay, take the dog out, then take out 100 buckets of water, then come back and tell me. And then they come back and the water's fine. There's no smell left anymore, right? So this is the problem with some of these dumb ideas. This is one of the reasons, please, for the sake of Allah Ta'ala, don't learn your deen from conferences and from politicians and from music videos and from TV and from internet and from movies and from like your non-Muslim professor who uses like 17 pronouns for gender. And don't learn from them. Learn other stuff from them. Don't learn your deen from them. But what happens, people go to school, they're like, yeah, man, none of the ulama even know anything about Islam, and they just make it all up. Why? Because I took a class in university from a non-Muslim, even though I don't know how to read Nurani Qaida, And they have the dumbest objections, and it's just really ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. So the idea is what? Now once the dog is in the well, you have to take the dog out from... So these are 3 different ways of taking the dog out. Okay, the Athari way is, you know what? Imam Ahmad, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, this is a statement attributed to him, and this is, Malik also agrees with this statement, so does Shafi'i, so do a majority of the old school mashayikh. They say, look, these people put themselves in this situation, and now they have misunderstood the mutashabihat, and now we have to explain to them what the correct meaning of the mutashabihat is, and we don't even know ourselves. And it's a worse sin, right? Imam Ahmad, he said this. He was a man known for his taqwa. I mean, he was like super taqwa guy, right? Super taqwa, right? Like if you read the stories of his taqwa, like his own son sent him like food, and his son worked for the government, and Imam Ahmad disapproved of that because the government does zulm on people. And so he refused to eat the food. And not only is he, imagine how super taqwa he is, even his posse, his gang he used to hang out with, his students and his friends and stuff, because of him, they were also super taqwa. So he's like, any of you want to eat this? They're like, no, we're not going to eat it either, because Imam Ahmad isn't eating it, right? So then he's like, go throw it away. And then one of them's like, can we go and like just give it to some poor person in Baghdad, because instead of wasting it? So Imam Ahmad's like, yeah, but tell them that it came from the earnings of the government. And so everyone in Baghdad was like super taqwa because the posse was super taqwa. So they saw them and they're like, he's like, yeah, but it's from government money. Nobody would take it. And so the guy who they sent to like distribute it, he told the story, no one would take it. And Imam Ahmad is like, then what'd you do? He goes, I just threw it in the river so the fish would eat it. And so Imam Ahmad is like, how long does a fish live on average? They're like, I don't know, 2 years. And so he's like, I'm not going to eat any fish from the river for another 2 years. But out of ihtiyat, he never ate fish again. Super taqwa, right? So this is Imam Ahmad, what did he say? He said, for me to come to Allah Ta'ala being guilty of theft and zina is more favorable to me than coming to Allah Ta'ala having speculated or lied about him. The idea of Imam Ahmad stealing things and committing zina is like ludicrous. If another man said it, you'd be like, okay, yeah, whatever, right? This is like super taqwa. He's not eating the fish out of the river and the Tigris and the Euphrates, and he's talking about zina and stealing things. He says, I would rather be guilty of zina and stealing things than going to Allah Ta'ala and he asked me, you said this thing about my nature and about my sifat in this such and such book, and who told you that? Is it in the Quran? No. Did you think you could just make it up? He said that that's a sin that's worse. Lying about Allah Ta'ala is kufr. It's worse than any sin. So the Athari methodology is like, look, you guys screwed yourself up by listening to all these dumb people. We told you not to listen to them. This is your problem now. This is the Malik, Shafi'i, a number of the old school, the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, most of them, this was their position. This is your problem, you deal with it now. I'm not going to go to Jahannam in order to help you because you screwed yourself up badly. This is the Athari methodology. And there are a number of ulama that follow this. Then the other two schools, the Maturidi and Ash'ari school is what? He said, no, now this Mu'tazila, Mujassima, Qadariya, Jahmiya, all these weird groups, right? They've really, really messed up the large swaths of the generality of the Muslims. Now we need to somehow do something in order to correct their beliefs, in order to dislodge the falsehood of what they've been told. Otherwise, the entire ummah is going to be consumed with these people. And so, what did they do? They came up with a methodology called ta'wil. Okay? So there's a difference between tafsir and ta'wil. Tafsir is what? It's to say this means that. This word means that. Yaqeen here means death. So tafsir has two valid modes of making tafsir. Because nowadays when we say tafsir, unfortunately, what does it mean? It means like a bunch of aunties get together in the house and they read like this, we're going to dars tafsir. Okay, I didn't know that, I wasn't aware that the Quran was revealed in Persian. But at any rate, we're going to have dars tafsir. And then someone who doesn't themselves even know Arabic, they're going to read an ayah and they'll be like, this means this to me and this reminds me of that time that I went to the grocery store and this happened at the mall. And that's not tafsir. The thing we laugh about it is actually a very serious issue. Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, من قال في القرآن برأيه, it's a hadith of Tirmidhi, فقد أخطأ وإن أصاب, and in a narration, فقد كفر. The person who speaks about the Quran based on their own opinion, that person is wrong even if they're right. Even if their opinion happens to bring them to the right answer, with Allah they're wrong. So I gave the example of this. The example of this is like, sometimes I fly like almost every weekend. Sometimes when I'm flying home, I actually see the airplane passes over my house. So what if one day I'm like, you know what, instead of going to the airport, waiting for a ride, coming back, baggage claim, but then it's annoying, right? I'll just jump out of the plane and just go straight home. It's a dumb idea for a number of reasons, okay? One reason is it's very difficult that's not a place where you can actually time the jump just right and land in exactly where you want to go. Even a little bit of hesitation, delay, wind, this and that, you'll be miles away from where you need to go, and it's difficult. And the problem still remains. What if I land right in front of my door? I'm going to land in pizza form because it was just a dumb idea. So you don't make up stuff about the Quran. There are only two valid ways of making tafsir of the Quran. One is ma'qul and the other is manqul. Ma'qul is what? Using a sound understanding of the Arabic language. Or using a sound understanding of logic. This is what this word means, this is what this grammatical structure means. Using a sound understanding of logic is what? It means that like if this is true, then the opposite, the opposite is the opposite of it, etc., etc. The second methodology is what's called the manqul, meaning the transmitted, right? So some part of the Quran explains some part of the Quran, or some part of the hadith explains some part of the Quran. This is a valid method of making tafsir. It's a highly technical science. What books do they read in tafsir in the madrasa? They read the Jalalain and they read the Baydawi. Jalalain is a very technical work and it's an extremely simple work. It's a short work. It's difficult enough for the students of knowledge to read. Baydawi, many madars, they don't even crack it open anymore because it's such a technically difficult book to read. If you want to know, right? So you want to know who's the real mullah, who's the real like Don, like Alpha Molvi, the guy who can crack open the Baydawi and explain it to you properly. That's an intellectual achievement. Tafsir is not the joke we've turned it into. What we consider tafsir nowadays is just like story time with the Quran, using the Quran as like a place to start your story time. That's not what tafsir is. So tafsir is, however, it's an affirmative way of saying this means this means that. You're affirming some meaning. Ta'wil is another interpretive methodology which is different than tafsir. The way of doing ta'wil is what? That you say that this text has X number of possible meanings. So al arsh istawa, maybe it means Allah Ta'ala sits in a chair in the sky. The language, like linguistically, that's a possibility. But maybe it means something else. So what is the position of the Ahlus Sunnah is Allah knows best what it means. That's what the position of all three schools is. Ta'wil is to say, look, you're actually, out of all these possibilities, we're saying Allah knows best, you're actually picking a possibility, saying that no, it means Allah sits in a chair in the sky. What are we saying? We're saying, look, Allah Ta'ala describes himself as being aqrabu ilayhi min hablil warid, that he's closer to man than his carotid artery, and it says that he is the one who is God in the heavens and the one who is God in the earth. وَهُوَ الَّذِي فِي السَّمَاءِ إِلَهٌ وَفِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَهٌ. And it also says that he's in the hadith that he comes down in the last third of the night to the lowest of the samawat. All of these, what do they mean, right? They cannot mean physical locus. Why? Because otherwise you'll say some part of the Quran is contradicting another part of the Quran. And the Quran itself says that's not possible. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. that do they not ponder over the Quran and know that if it was from other than Allah Ta'ala, they would have found great discordance, great cacophony, strife inside of it. Some part of it would have contradicted the other part. So the Quran itself says it doesn't contradict itself. So something else must be going on over here. Okay? So don't you say things like metaphorically, like the throne, right? The throne in England, there's something that happens called the throne speech. Right? What is it? That the queen or the sovereign or their deputy comes and gives a speech to parliament. And it's called the throne speech. Why? Not because the throne talks, because that would be ludicrous, right? But because there's a speech that's given because of the authority of the throne being a metaphor for the sovereign authority of the monarch, right? Or for example, when you get a speeding ticket in Canada, it's really cute. We live in America, land of the free, home of the brave. We don't have no king and queen tell us what to do, but you guys are still in slavery, so we feel bad for you guys. So when you get a speeding ticket in Canada, again, very ludicrous, high levels of ludicrousness, but it says in the ticket that you have 30 days to contest this ticket to the crown. What, are you going to actually go to the crown and be like, yo, what's up with this ticket? No, the crown is a metaphor for the sovereign authority of the government. Right? So maybe, so this is also, so what is that we will say? It says this is also a possible meaning. And this meaning doesn't the al-arsh istawa, it might mean what? I mean, as a possibility, this is also something that the language can accept this meaning, right? That it might mean that Allah Ta'ala's sovereignty is above the arsh, that the arsh, the throne of Allah Ta'ala, is the greatest of Allah's creation, physically. We'll talk about it later in the book. So if Allah's authority extends over it, it means that it extends over all creation. This is also a possible meaning. This meaning is superior to yours. Why? Because this meaning doesn't involve violating the rule of laysa kamithlihi shay, there's nothing like unto him, and it doesn't involve violating the other places in the Quran where it suggests that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's presence is somewhere or another. So we say this explanation, although we're not saying this is what it means. We're saying this explanation is superior to yours. Not in order to say this explanation is what we believe, but in order to say your explanation is wrong, because it's not even the best of the possibilities that's there. So that's a proof that you're wrong. They're like, well, what's the actual explanation then? Allah knows best. All of the three madhabs, they devolve to the same default position, which is what? Which is in the mutashabihat, Allah knows what they mean, we don't know what they mean. But the latter two schools, the Maturidiyya and the Asha'ira, they employed this methodology of ta'wil, not necessarily to speculate something about the nature of Allah, but in order to prove the antagonist wrong, to improve the Mu'tazili wrong, to prove the Mujassim and the literalist wrong. That's what it is. Otherwise, once they're done with the argument, they all default back to the same basic aqidah, which is the aqidah of what? That the mutashabihat, Allah Ta'ala knows best what it means. This methodology is called tafweed, with a dad at the end, tafweed. Fawwada yufawwidu means what? That to like outsource the authority of something, right? So we say Allah knows best. The understanding of this ayah, we outsource it to Allah Ta'ala. He understands it. Whatever is there in His understanding, that's what we affirm as being true. We don't need to understand it. We just affirm whatever is there in His knowledge. All three madhabs do the same thing, except for the latter two madhabs use ta'wil as a methodology in order to prove the other side wrong. What is it? It's like taking the corpse of the dog out of the well. That's all it is. Anyone who implies anything other than that hasn't understood what the madhabs of Kalam, what the madhabs of Aqidah mean. And so someone might ask, why are there two different madhabs? Why is there Ash'ari and Maturidi? The reason is what? The Maturidis do this ta'wil process based on the usuli methodology of the Hanafi school, and the Ash'aris do it based on the usuli methodology of the Shafi'i school. Originally, the Malikis and the Hanabila were athari. They said, we're not going to deal with nonsense like this. Right? Why? With the Malikis, the reason why is that in the Maliki lands, there's no non-Sunni group that's there. There's like some Khawarij that are up in the hills. The Malikis are like, you guys stay up in your hills and we won't bother you. If you ever come down in the city and spout your nonsense, we're going to beat you down. That was an arrangement. It lasted for like centuries. Later on, a deviant group emerges called the Muwahhidun, and they make such a spectacle out of like weird, abstruse theological debates that the Malikis will switch. They'll whole school adopt the Ash'ari methodology for ta'wil later on. Now all the Malikis are all Ash'ira. But originally they weren't. Why? Because there's no need to. Why would someone make ta'wil if there's no need to? So this is a validation of the idea that in the Hanbali madhab, traditionally they stuck to the athari methodology. They said, you guys were not interested in doing this ta'wil. They stuck to the opinion of their Shaykh Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, who said that I would rather meet Allah Ta'ala guilty of zina and theft rather than make idle speculation with regards to the nature of Allah Ta'ala. So that's what the difference between them is. Yeah? If you don't know Arabic, you can find a translation of the Quran that is endorsed by the ulama and read it. But don't expect that you're like Shaykh al-Quran by reading the translation. Just take whatever basic meanings you can get from it and benefit from them. And if something seems a little bit more complicated, then you can ask the ulama about it. So the idea with regards to the schools of Kalam, again, is that the Hanafi methodology for Kalam, the reason the school is called Maturidi is not because Imam Maturidi, Abul Mansur al-Maturidi al-Samarqandi came up with it. Rather, he himself says, because he's a student, he's a grand student of the students of Abu Hanifa. He's a student of the students of Imam Muhammad and Qadi Abu Yusuf. He says that this ta'wil, this methodology for ta'wil, is actually transmitted knowledge from Imam Abu Hanifa. This is his knowledge with regards to Aqidah. He used to use it during his own lifetime. And he transmitted it. And the reason the madhab is called Maturidi is because Abu Mansur al-Maturidi is the first one that oral tradition to write it down. Otherwise, the Maturidi school of Kalam it's part of the Hanafi madhab, in fact. And this is something that a person who actually has a serious study of the Hanafi madhab, they know that the Hanafi fiqh is built on the platform of Hanafi aqaid. What does that mean? You ever wonder why is it that Maulvi Sahib says that Isha is fard and Witr is wajib? What's the difference between them? Functionally, there's no difference at all in terms of fiqh. The difference between them is a difference of aqidah. That wajib is that thing that if you do it, you get reward, and if you leave it, you get sin. And fard is that thing, if you do it, you get reward, and if you leave it, you get sin. That's the same between both of them, in fact. The difference is what? If Isha, somebody denies that Isha is wajib, or is fard, then the person is a kafir. Whereas if someone denies that witr is fard, that's within the ambit of difference of opinion. This is the same thing as what's the difference between makruh tahrimi and between haram. So Imam Abu Hanifa said that eating like seafood other than fish is makruh tahrimi. Eating pork is haram. So someone's like, I'm Hanafi but I like shrimp, I'm Hanafi but I like crab and lobster, right? Okay, chalo yaar chalta hai. Well, you can't be like, I'm Hanafi but I like pork. You can't do that. Why? Because one is makruh tahrimi, the other is haram. In terms of fiqh, they're both the same. The difference between them is a difference of aqidah. And this is the genius of Abu Hanifa. He said that part of the law which is protected by the aqidah takes priority over that part of the law that's not protected by aqidah. That might be a difference of opinion. Right? This is a very subtle and nuanced way of looking at the law that is unique to the madhab of Abu Hanifa when compared to the madhab of the other fuqaha. So this methodology of ta'wil actually comes from Abu Hanifa. Abu Hanifa's madhab was not like that of Malik and of Ahmad bin Hanbal. Malik, he lived in Medina. There's no heterodox group. There's only the grandchildren of the Sahaba. That's it, radiallahu anhum. Whereas Kufa is like a freak show. There's all kind of weird people coming and going, saying all kind of weird things. You have to debate with them all the time. And so Abu Hanifa is understandably going to be more advanced and developed in his intellectual and scholastic machinery that he needs in order to protect the deen against such people. And eventually, majority of the ummah will end up adopting one of these two methodologies. The story with the Ash'aris is a little bit different in the sense that Shafi'i also, he didn't used to speculate about, he didn't used to do ta'wil with regards to kalamic issues. However, Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari is a lineal descendant of the companion of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. And so what happened is his father died when he was a kid. His mother married Ali al-Jubba'i, Abu Ali al-Jubba'i. Abu Ali al-Jubba'i is the Shaykh of the Mu'tazila in his age. So it's his stepson. And he was his best student. And he was on his way to be like the Mu'tazili, like top carnivore. And then he sees Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a dream, who's like, yeah, these people are bogus, you need to refute them. And so he woke up and, it had an effect on him. So he went into the dars and he basically he started challenging his stepfather on a number of issues. And his stepfather was unable to answer his questions. And so because he knew the Mu'tazili creed from the inside, he was the one who then will refute it very thoroughly from amongst the Sunni ulama, and he'll use this methodology of ta'wil in order to refute it. And then his methodology then will be adopted by Imam al-Haramain al-Juwayni and by Imam Ghazali and by a number of other scholars of Aqidah. But again, all these three schools, they believe the same Aqidah. It's not like the Aqidah is different. There's like very minute difference, but in the basic, in the large, or I should say, primary understanding of Aqaid, they're the same. It's just that the methodology for ta'wil that they have, there's a slight difference in it. But the understanding they have for the mutashabihat is the same, that whatever they are, Allah knows best what they are, and whatever they are in the knowledge of Allah Ta'ala, that's what we believe. So that's the same thing with seeing Allah Ta'ala in Jannah, is that He said it's going to happen, we say it's true. How is it going to happen? That's Allah Ta'ala's business. However He knows it's going to happen, that's what we affirm. So the Mu'tazila are like, well, no, you can't really see Allah Ta'ala, so like, maybe Allah Ta'ala will, they have different interpretations of what this means, right? So one of the things was, maybe Allah Ta'ala will show the people something, and it'll be real, like, spectacular, and they'll be like, oh, that must be Allah. But really, it's not really Him, right? And it's like, astaghfirullah, is that what you think Allah Ta'ala is? Like, He's going to like deceive you and whatever? That's like really bad. Ana inda dhanni abdi bi. Allah Ta'ala is a hadith Qudsi of Bukhari. I am as my slave thinks of me. That's a really bad thing to think about Allah Ta'ala, that He would do that. It should be intuitive to a person of Iman that that's not how Allah is. And so a slightly more respectful position of the Mu'tazila was like, maybe here seeing is a metaphor for like some sort of souped up and more deeper understanding of Allah, or some deep knowledge that you'll be like, oh wow, my heart is like radiant with light because I have so much more understanding. And that's what quote unquote seeing means. How do you know? Did Allah Ta'ala send you an email that He didn't send it to the Prophet ﷺ, or the Prophet ﷺ got it but he didn't share it with us? How do you know? Or are you just making it up? That's the problem. So the Ahlus Sunnah say, look, it might be this, it might be that, put it to the side. Allah says it's going to happen, it's going to happen. What the particular detailed meaning of it is, we don't claim to have that knowledge, but we say Allah has that knowledge. Whatever that knowledge is with Allah Ta'ala, that's what we affirm as true, and we don't discuss it thereafter. This is not saying shut up, we don't want to talk about it. This is saying that, so he'll get to this. He'll get to it in a little bit. I'm going to hold myself back because you can't just spill all your beans all at once, right? I don't know if you guys noticed yet. I like really love this. Like I love ilm, and I love this Aqidah, and I love this book, and it makes me really excited. And that's why I can like talk for 8 hours straight, and with minimal sleep and large amount of like other sickness and issues. But this is like, makes me happy, mashallah. This is a commentary. This is the Ta'liq al-Saniya, Ta'liqat al-Saniya, Ali Jabr al-Jibran. I met one of the master Qurra of Makkah Mukarramah. He's a Qari from Punjab. He said, I met this Shaykh one time. He was a wali of Allah. He said, the reason that I used to consider him a wali of Allah, even his old age when he was like dying, he was in so much pain, he couldn't even sit still, like he was in so much pain from his sickness. And so what they used to do in order to like treat him is they would bring the students of knowledge to his room and just ask him to lecture on some topic of ilm. And while he's talking, he forgot he's sick. And as soon as they would leave, he'd like be in pain again. Like he'd remember like his illness and his pain again. So that's like, that's real dawn level of ilm. We're not there yet, but maybe little people get a little bit of it, get real excited. I know mashallah Abrar is like, he's like itching, he's like, yeah, and this too, I want to say this too. Okay, go, why don't you go teach the Tahawiyyah, dude? Mashallah, you probably do it better than me, just like movie Wardak. Other Molvi Sahab Hazrat, you too. and shaykhat as well, whoever are here. So he now brings a general point. He says, فَإِنَّهُ مَا سَلِمَ فِي دِينِهِ إِلَّا مَنْ سَلَّمَ لِلَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَرَدَّ عِلْمَ مَشْتَبَهَ عَلَيْهِ إِلَى عَالِمِهِ. He says, look, this is a general principle, that somebody is not going to be safe in their deen. Their deen will not be free from defects, unless they can admit that Allah Ta'ala knows and I don't know. That there are certain things that are not going to be clear to me with regards to the deen, but they're clear to Allah. Allah knows. This is a really subtle point. If you feel like I have to understand everything in the deen, you're not going to go very far. Why? Because in ilm, Allah Ta'ala is la sharika lahu, like He is in all of His sifat. There's no partner unto Him. But if you feel like I have to understand everything, then it's like me and Allah. There's no me and Allah, there's Allah. You understand what I'm saying? Imagine someone's like, oh, I'm a skeptic. I'm not gonna believe in anything until I understand it. Tell me who's gonna understand Allah. This mindset is kufr. Not because I'm telling you you cannot understand. In fact, once you humble yourself, you will learn the knowledge that you wouldn't have been able to learn otherwise. But if you have to say, I understand everything, and Allah Himself is saying in His book, مَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. There's some things Allah Ta'ala is the only one who's going to know what the interpretation of these things are. If you cannot accept that Allah knows more than you, Islam is not going to work out. This Islam thing is not going to work out. What's the meaning of Islam? It doesn't mean peace. Every time, man, on TV, man, some masjid uncle gets the Islam mean peace. It means the beast and the beast. It doesn't mean beast. What does it mean? Submission. Americans are like, oh, I'm free. It's the land of the free. It's America, baby. I don't want to submit to. I'm free. I'm like eagle flying through the air with like 2 machine guns. That's how free I am. I agree, like with other people, with the rest of the creation, yeah, no one's going to tell me what to do, right? When it comes to Allah Ta'ala, Allah is Allah, is the Lord, and the slave is the slave. If you cannot accept that Allah knows things that you don't know, then Islam's not going to work out for you, which is basically what he's trying to say. So, وَتَثْبُتُ قَدَمُ الْإِسْلَامِ إِلَّا عَلَى ظَهْرِ التَّسْلِيمِ وَالْإِسْتِسْلَامِ. The foothold of Islam is not going to be firm except for when it's planted in the back of vouchsafing knowledge to Allah Ta'ala and surrendering to Him. Admitting that there's things Allah knows and that you and I don't know. Now, again, am I saying, shut up, it's a mystery, it's a holy mystery, shut up? No. We're saying Allah Ta'ala knows certain things that we don't, not because of ignorance, but because of understanding. He created the heavens and earth from nothing. He created time and space. There are certain things that are going to make sense to Him that are not going to make sense to you. So, no, I'm going to work real hard and understand it. Who here gets help on their calculus homework from their dog? Is there any type of training that you'll give your dog that's going to like allow your dog to do integrals and derivatives and spherical geometry? No, it's not what a dog does. Dog will fetch. You tell the dog fetch, it'll fetch real good. Sick the dog on an intruder. I've heard very funny stories, many of which are not even appropriate to tell in the masjid, mashallah, about how good dogs are at sicking the intruder. They know exactly where to bite, yes, right? The idea is what? But if you tell him calculus, the dog loves you. People's dogs love them, right? There's a picture. There's one famous politician in America just died recently. We don't need to take his name in the house of Allah Ta'ala, right? There's a picture of his casket, right? And the dog is sitting right there in front of the casket. And I'm like, man, at least the dog is good in this picture. That's a type of sincerity, right? That's a type of sincerity and love. If a human being loved another human being like that, this would be a great thing, right? The dog is really... So what are you going to be like? My dog doesn't really love me because it stands outside of my door and it protects me in every waking moment, but it's never wrote a poem for me. It's like, no, shut up, man. That's not what the dog does. Allah Ta'ala is, if you understand things that the dog won't understand, trust me, you and me are much closer to the dog than we are to Allah Ta'ala. The gap and the chasm between us and Allah Ta'ala is huge. The gap and chasm between you, me, and the dog is very little, in fact. It's very little. And if it seems like a lot to you, it's nothing compared to the chasm between us and Allah Ta'ala. If you cannot accept that, that means that you think Allah is like you, like the creation. Part of understanding, this is based on understanding, it's not based on jahl. If you're a jahil, you would think Allah Ta'ala is like, like X-Men and like something like a combination between Zeus and Wolverine in the sky, and we'll just talk it out and he'll explain it to me and I'll get it. It's not like that. This affair is much bigger. It's amrun azim. This is much greater than that. This jahl makes a person think that it's such a simple thing. Knowledge is what makes you understand this is a much bigger thing than that. So that's what I'm saying. Like we have to accept that we want to understand. It's not me telling you shut up. It's a holy mystery. It's understanding based on knowledge. So with that, I'm told 4:22 is the adhan time. 42. Oh, amazing! So much more aqidah. Wow, mashallah. فمن رام علم ما حذر عنه علمه ولم يقنع بالتسليم فهمه حجبه مرامه عن خالص التوحيد وصافي المعرفة وصحيح الإيمان فيتذبذب بين الكفر والإيمان والتصديق والتكذيب والإقرار والإنكار موسوسا تائها شاكا زائغا لا مؤمنا مكذبا ولا جاحدا ولا مؤمنا مصدقا ولا جاحدا مكذبا. You gotta love Tahawi, rahimahullah ta'ala, when he really wants to, pull someone apart, just dismember them, he does it hard. MashaAllah. This is also adab. This is the adab of ilm is that you don't pull punches, that you say things how they are. There's a mercy in that. This is not, however, how you should talk to your wife unless you want to sleep on the couch. A person who desires that knowledge that they were warned that they can never have, that desire will become a hijab between them and Allah. Allah Ta'ala says, the mutashabihat, He says, you're not going to understand them. So many things, it should be intuitive to you. If Allah created the heavens and the earth from nothing, He's not bound by time and space. It should be intuitive to all of us that Allah Ta'ala... It should be intuitive to all of us that Allah Ta'ala, there's certain things He can know that we can never know. So the desire to know that knowledge which is only Allah has it, that desire will become hijab between you and Allah Ta'ala. That desire will become a hijab between you and pure tawheed. Why? Because Allah is the one who is the alim. Allah is the alimul ghaib. Allah is the alim, and you want to be alim with Him. So that's not tawheed anymore. Now it's not one, it's two. It's Allah and you. There's no Allah in you. There's just Allah. And it will be a hijab between you and safil ma'rifah, that your heart. Remember we talked about the tasawwuf is how you worship Allah Ta'ala through your heart. This desire is a desire. It's also going to be a hijab between your heart and between knowing Allah. Wasahih al-iman, and it's a desire. It's going to be a hijab between you and correct faith. So such a person will vacillate back and forth between disbelief and belief, between accepting the deen as true and between harboring doubts as to whether it's true or not, between declaring the deen and between disavowing the deen. And that person will always, this desire to have the knowledge of Allah will always whisper satanic whisperings in that person's ear, and that person will wander aimlessly in their pursuit of deen. And that person will constantly be plagued with doubts, and that person will be crooked, and that person will not be able to be a proper believer who accepts the deen as true, but at the same time they won't be a denier of the deen who says that the deen is false. They'll just be in this no man's land. What is that area called? That's like nifaq. The amount of desire you have of the knowledge that Allah told, that you know Allah is going to know and you're not going to know, that's the amount of nifaq that will come into your heart. That's the aqidah dimension of nifaq. ولا يصح الإيمان بالرؤية لأهل دار السلام لمن اعتبرها منهم بوهم أو تأولها بفهم إذ تأويل الرؤية وتأويل كل معنى يضاف إلى الربوبية بترك التأويل ولزوم التسليم وعليه دين المسلمين وشرائع النبيين. That a person's iman with regards to seeing Allah for the people of Dar es Salaam, we're not talking about Thorncliffe. What are we talking about? What's Dar es Salaam? No Thorncliffe, nor Nugget, nor none of the. What is it? Jannah. Right? It's also one of the names of Medina as well, mashallah. That's why ini mazhab behishti est. Behishti. Mazaya? Mazami ayad. Huh? it's a name of Medina, and that's appropriate too because there's a part of Jannah in Medina as well, mashallah, right? So the people of Jannah, the Aqidah with regards to them seeing what? Seeing Allah Ta'ala, that Aqidah will not be correct for the person who believes that Allah will show them something and they'll think it's Allah but it's not really Him. Or that Aqidah is not correct for the person who thinks that Allah will give them some souped up knowledge and that's what it means. Rather, the proper interpretation with regards to the seeing of Allah in Jannah and the proper interpretation of every reality that is attributed to the Lordship of Allah Ta'ala is only attained through leaving interpretation and holding fast to submitting. That whatever it is, Allah knows what it is, and we affirm it as correct, we just submit to it. And this is the deen of the Muslims, and this is the sharia of every one of the prophets. And I know that the text that you have in your hand is a little bit different. He says, let's see, وَعَلَيْهِ دِينُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. The Shara'i al-Nabiyyin part is not there. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَتَوَقَّ النَّفْيَ وَالتَّشْبِيهَ الزَّلَّ وَلَمْ يُسِبِ التَّنْزِيهِ. Tahawi says that there are two extremes the believer has to stay away from. One is to say, oh, this is not what Allah meant when He said such and such thing, because He actually said it, right? So it's true. You can't say that He didn't mean that. He says that you're going to see Him in Jannah. No, He didn't really mean that. He said it's His word. No, He didn't really mean that, because it doesn't make sense to me. Well, by who said it has to make sense to you? Not everything in the deen is going to make sense to you. There are certain things Allah knows you're not going to know. That should be very intuitive to a person how that's the case. Rather, and someone's like, well, how is that different than what the Christians say about holy mystery? Look, we don't tell you to say 3 equals 1. There's nothing that you can verifiably know is wrong. There are certain things about the unseen realm that you can neither verify as true or false. The deen says that this way rather than that way. That's not asking someone to believe something that's irrational. That's just asking someone to believe something based on trust. What the Christians do is the Jews, what did they do? They ask you to believe things that you know are actually wrong. There's no way this could be possible at all. That's the difference between them. So what does Tahawi say? That you have to, one extreme is saying, no, this is, Allah says something, this is not, no, but He didn't mean that. How do you know He didn't mean that? And then on the flip side, tashbih is like, no, He literally meant it to be correct to the point where it makes Allah resemble the creation. Tafweed is what? Is saying that whatever it is what it is. We know it doesn't mean all this other stuff that you guys are talking about. So, well, then what does it mean? So Allah knows best. Not our job. Not our job. He understands, we don't understand. Whatever meaning it has inside of Allah's knowledge, that's what we affirm as correct. And what we know it doesn't mean is this other weird stuff you guys are talking about. So a person who doesn't protect themselves from these two extremes, that person, they have slipped with regards to their iman, and they'll never be able to understand what tawheed is, or what tashbih, what Allah's transcendence is. Because on one side, they're using their own knowledge in order to negate attributes of Allah. On the other side, they're using their own knowledge in order to make Allah Ta'ala drag Him into the creation. To say Allah is 0 and to say Allah is a finite number, none of these is what the actual Aqidah is, which is Allah is infinity. Allah Ta'ala is beyond our comprehension. So to actually know how Allah is greater than us, it requires that we let go the need to drag Him into creation, or the need to push Him so far away that we say He's nothing, that He's just a dream or something that has no reality that we can be affected by or feel. Right? That's why by the way, this is why the ulama, they say that it's haram to try to think about, answer the question, what is Allah? We know as He's one and He exists. Everything else that you think about, you know that that's not Him. Rather, we're commanded to reflect over Allah's attributes. Why? Because the attributes are how we interact with Allah Ta'ala. That part we know. Allah gave me a mother, Allah gave me a father, Allah gave me food to drink, Allah gave me water, food to eat, water to drink. Allah Ta'ala gave me a nice masjid to come to. I have, mashallah, friends. I ate pizza for lunch. This is all from Allah's mercy. This is from Allah's ni'mah. One time I wanted to get a tattoo really badly, and my father said it's haram, you can't do it. Now, alhamdulillah, I'm glad I didn't get it, because that would have been embarrassing when I go to Hajj. Like all these things. This is Allah's favor upon you. You know those things, because that's your experience. But does that mean that, I know exactly who Allah is? No, who could know? How could the one caged in time and space the finite one know who the infinite one is. It doesn't work that way. So because you need to understand the transcendence of Allah, you have to let go the need to say, you know what everything means, thereby falling victim to one of two extreme errors. One is to push him so far away that you interpret everything away as a metaphor, and the other is to try to make everything so concrete that you drag him into the creation. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. إن ربنا جل وعلا موصوفا بصفات الوحدانية منعوت بنعوت الفردانية ليس بمعناه أحد من البرية. Because our Lord, majestic and high as He, is described with attributes of oneness and given descriptors, is given man'ut is na'at and sifa are similar in meaning. I don't know what the subtle differences in the language. Maybe some of your Arabi Dan type individuals can explain that to you a little bit better. But Allah is described with the attributes of oneness and with uniqueness, that He's one and He's unique. There's nothing like Him. لَيْسَ بِمَعْنَاهُ أَحَدٌ مِّنَ الْبَرِيَّةِ. None of the creation has the reality that matches with Allah Ta'ala. Okay, so this point number 47 in the first text that you have, and let's see what page is it going to be on. Oh my goodness, these pages are not even numbered. Okay, so this is تعالى الله عن الحدود والغايات. This point that Allah تعالى الله عن الحدود والغايات والأركان والأعضاء والأدوات لا تحويه الجهات الست كسائر المبتدعات. Allah Ta'ala is exalted. This point, I want you to highlight it. I want you to circle it. I want you to put smiley faces, stars, hearts all around it. There's like 100 questions that people are going to ask me. Just go look back at this question. And then don't raise your hand and say, well, Shaykh so-and-so said, Shaykh Abu whatever said this and that. No. This is what Tahawi says. If Shaykh Abu Fulan doesn't agree with Tahawi, that's his problem. This is not a class on Shaykh Abu Fulan's Aqidah. This is a class on the Aqidah of Tahawi. This is the Aqidah of Ahlus Sunnah Wal Jamah. If somebody wants to argue with it, that's a different circle. I'm not saying that they're not allowed to. This is not the Quran. They can have their own opinion if they want to, right? But let them not claim that they follow the Aqidah of Imam Tahawi, because this is stated very clearly. This is not an ambiguous statement. It's not from the mutashabihat, right? Mutashabihat are in the Quran. They're not in like the Aqidah books. Okay? So he says what? Allah is exalted above having limits or extremities or requiring pillars to hold Him up or support Him, or above having limbs, or above using instruments. And He is not contained within the 6 directions like all created things. What are the 6 directions? Front, back, left, right, up, down. He's not contained in space. Remember we said that yesterday. We said قَدِيمٌ بِالْابْتِدَاءٍ دَائِمٌ بِالْانْتِهَاءٍ. Right? Yesterday, Tahawi explicitly negated assigning time, saying that Allah is confined by time. And we said that by rational extension, He also shouldn't be contained by space if this is true as well. And I mentioned that Tahawi will explicitly mention this fact later on. So what did he say? He says Allah is exalted above having any limits or extremities or being held up by anything, arsh or otherwise, or having limbs like a hand or the like, or requiring instruments to prosecute his will. He is not contained within the 6 directions, up, down, left, right. He's not contained within space. He created space. It doesn't contain Him. Rather, the space is something He created. So, Shah Isman Shahid rahimahullah tabarak wa ta'ala, from our great mashayikh, who was a man of encyclopedic learning, he, as the name suggests, he was Shahid fi sabilillah in protecting the homeland of the Muslims in what's now the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan, in Kashmir, in a place called Balakot, against the invading army of the Maharaja Ranjit Singh. The Sikhs used to have a great martial empire. Now they're which is fine, but now they're in Canada. At least they're their outreach and politics is very inclusive and very liberal and very like ecumenical. But there was a Sikh empire that wasn't like that at all. They actually conquered Lahore, they conquered Punjab, they conquered a great swath of the Indian subcontinent, and they're quite antagonistic toward Muslims. The Wazir Khan Masjid in Lahore was actually turned into a stable in order to degrade and denigrate the Muslims. And their empire was a very violent empire. Its rise was violent and its fall was violent and quick as well. So Shah Ismail Shaheed, who was the grandson of Shah Waliullah, he was a great alim. He was Shaheed fi sabilillah in fighting them when they were trying to take over Kashmir. And that's why Kashmir, by the way, is like it's in the mess it's in right now, because it was under the rule of a Sikh sovereign since that time. And the Sikh sovereign, he gave Kashmir to India rather than subjecting its secession to a democratic vote, which probably would have yielded it going to Pakistan, because a majority of its population was Muslim. Not that I'm saying that like as Muslims we support Pakistan or India. That's a whole like mess of politics I'm not going to get into right now. That's just like historical fact without any context. So Shah Ismail Shaheed, in one of his books, he writes a simple exercise, a thought exercise for a person to understand how is it that Allah Ta'ala transcends place. Because there are some people, the Mujassima, the literalists, they say, well, you say Allah Ta'ala transcends the 6 directions. You're just like the Mu'tazila, you're saying He doesn't exist because He's not in the 6 directions. We say, no, the 6 directions is a creation of Allah. He exists, His existence is greater than being contained by it. So Shah Ismail Shaheed, he said, for example, you guys can participate in this thought experiment unless you feel like I'm going to steal your wallet while your eyes are closed. Go ahead and close your eyes. So you think about like a house in a neighborhood, like a normal neighborhood in Ajax or wherever you're from, Pickering or Oshawa, like Mohan Shakir. You think about a house and there's somebody inside the dining room in the house, sitting at the dining table eating dinner. Now you open your eyes. If that person in this vision that you had while you were closed your eyes, right? If someone asked that person, where are you? Are they going to point up? Are they going to point down, left, right? Which direction are they going to point? There's no direction they can point that accurately describes what your spatial relationship is to them. However, does that mean that you don't exist? No. Am I saying this is the relationship between Allah and us? No. There's no mithal. You cannot make analogies when it comes to Allah. Laysa kamithlihi shay. There's nothing like unto Him. However, what I am trying to say is, if you can imagine how 2 created things can both exist and there's no spatial relationship between them, then that means that this is even more possible for the relationship between Allah and the creation, which is even, the chasm between it is even greater. So this is something you can circle it, and if someone else, you hear them in a bayan saying that Allah Ta'ala sits in a chair in the sky, you can say, well, Tahawi doesn't agree with you. They can explain whatever they want, however they want, and I don't agree with them. And neither does Tahawi. Is there a question? 2 minutes to adhan. Yeah. Huh? Where? Yeah. Why don't you just learn Arabic and spare me all of this difficulty? $30, $47 you said? Yeah, it should be him. This happens, by the way. You know, Arabic books, they were transcribed by hand, and then they were typed up on like word processors by people who oftentimes aren't ulama. And someone will be like watching the weather report and say, wow, it's going to be hot on Tuesday. And then what happens? They forget to type Allah, and it completely like confuses the heck out of the text. And like, these things happen. There's no text that's divinely protected other than the Quran. Now, that's one of the reasons that Nahu is amazing, because usually the grammatical structure of the sentence will get messed up if a typist mistake is like that. So you can tell something's not right here. So that's one of the amazing parts of the Arabic grammar. Yes, you had a question? Quick though. Yeah, we mentioned that. So you said like, how do you know which ayat are mutashabihat and which ones are not? Those ayat that seem to indicate a meaning with regards to the nature of Allah that suggests that that nature is similar or resembles the creation, those are mutashabihat. We don't interpret those, right? But you can't just be like, oh look, zina is haram. This is one of the mutashabihat. You know, like you can't do that. It's pretty clear what it means, and it has nothing to do with like garbling the nature of Allah Ta'ala. So we interpret it, we accept it without interpretation. Barakallahu feekum. Inshallah, after the Salatul Maghrib, we'll have question and answer, inshallah. So please have your questions written down, and we'll do that till 5:30.